All right, everybody. Welcome to the Black Man's Perspective, the first edition. And we're going to be talking about the Super Bowl. This is Chester Starks Jr., but you're going to hear my MC name, which is Coyote, and I'll be your MC. And what we're going to do right now, we have a panel of experts who are black men. That's the point of this show. But they're not just black men. They also have some major involvement with football, either as fans or as former players, or obviously both. So what I want to do is go through our heavy hitter lineup, all in Northeast Ohio at the present moment. First, we have Dr. Michael Frost. He's a naturopath, and he has a lot of other items under his belt, which we will get into. But in terms of football, he actually played high school football, and he was a semi-pro for the Navy for a short time period. We also have Mr. James Ringfield, who played at Youngstown State University, and also tried out and got to play with the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFL. But first, what I want to do is get our journalist on the line with us right now. His name is Mr. Nubias Wilborn, who also played football at Georgia Southern. And we want to hear your Super Bowl pick. So who do you have to win? Is it the Seahawks or is it the Broncos, and why?
Well, I'm taking Denver in this game. I'm taking Denver to win by 6. What I'm looking at with Denver, I just think Peyton Manning has a superior quarterbacking mindset, quite honestly, and I just think he's going to be able to make the plays that are going to be needed. Julian Thomas is a solid tight end. I don't think Seattle has anybody as good as their secondary is. I don't think they'll have anybody that matches up with Julian Thomas, and I also don't think they have anybody who matches up with Wes Walker. Those guys will get plays, and Demaryius Thomas, the big wide receiver, I think he will match up very well with Richard Sherman. Because of those 3 matchups alone, I think that will be enough, combined with what they're able to do with their running game. I mean, the running back out of UGA, he's been very solid. He's actually had his first 1,000-yard season. Finally, Knowshon Moreno is starting to pick it up, and I think they have enough on offense to where they can score enough points. And quite honestly, Seattle's offense doesn't really score consistently. They're a good team. I really like their young quarterback. I just don't think that Russell Wilson is quite ready for the Super Bowl stage, and I think that combination of facts and figures will be enough to where Denver will win this game. It'll be a close game, be hotly contested, but I think when it's all said and done, Peyton Manning will get a Super Bowl. He'll have his second, and will go down as one of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks in NFL history.
Well, I personally believe that is the goal for Peyton Manning. I don't think he wants to be remembered for pizza, so I definitely think that he's going to do his best to win this game because he's on his last leg of a very legendary career. And I was talking to Mr. Ringfield. Mr. Ringfield, you know me, I'm the conspiracy theorist of the group. I think the refs cheat too much for whatever team they've agreed to let win. Do you think that would bring up any factor to go against what Nubias was just talking about with the quarterbacking and all the receiver weapons that Peyton Manning has?
You know, I agree with the simple fact that Denver, I mean, the weapons they have, and again, I mean, Peyton Manning is one of a kind. He is going to dissect that defense from start to end, and I just don't think, as talented as the Seahawks are, that they will be able to match up 4 quarters with, you know, the science of the game that he brings when he plays football. It's no conspiracy. I take Denver, but I'll go on a limb and say I got Denver in 10.
Okay. Well, what about you, Dr. Frost? I know you're quote-unquote the old school on the panel right now. You played in a different era. So do you think maybe Sherman's big mouth can push Seattle over the top with just pure adrenaline?
Well, you know, I'm really a player fan, and it's been a challenge for me to actually really pick who is going to win. And I remember one of the Super Bowls, the Super Bowl between Pittsburgh and Arizona. I bet on Pittsburgh, but was cheering for Arizona because they were the underdog, and because Seattle is basically the underdog, I will pull for them, but I do think that Denver has an edge because of the Master Manning. He's amazing. Nobody's saying anything about Denver's defense. Denver's defense shut down the Patriots' run. They shut Blunt down, and they rattled Tom Brady. They rattled him, and let's say this. I think Denver's going to win, but I want Seattle to win because I'm pulling for the underdog.
Well, I love excitement too, but I definitely think that the Broncos are going to win as well. And Seattle's still young enough to bounce back and within the next 2 or 3 years still be a contender and maybe win it all. I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but you can all chime in. Mr. Rainfield, you have anything about the future of the Seahawks?
I mean, the future is bright. You know, a lot of people don't understand, realize that coaching staff has put together an incredible team over the years, going out and getting 4th round, 5th round draft picks and putting them into a system that they believe in and making them players. And, you know, over the years, you know, Pete Carroll has done an absolute fabulous job. And I do believe in the near future, but not the near future, as in Sunday. You know, I'm a firm believer, as Coach Tressel used to tell us, you know, defense wins games. Offense wins championships.
Well,
as long as those two together, you're good to go.
I mean, well, here's the thing. You say the future's bright, but you also have to remember these guys. Richard Sherman's making $500,000 a year, and that's not going to last. Earl Thomas is on a bargain contract. Russell Wilson is still on his rookie deal. I mean, a lot of these guys that are main contributors are bargains. And guess what? When guys win Super Bowls, when guys make it this far, they're not going to want to be bargains anymore. They're going to want more money. I mean, you already look at San Francisco. They lost 2 or 3 guys. You look at the Atlanta Falcons that I'm from Atlanta. I covered the Falcons. They had to make some decisions because Matt Ryan got paid. Guys got to get paid, and some guys are going to go. And quite honestly, speaking of Richard Sherman, as good of a corner as he is, and he's very good. I even say great. Remember when we thought Nnamdi Asomugha was the best corner of all time? We thought Darrelle Revis was the best corner of all time. But what happened? When they didn't have that same level of safety, like an Earl Thomas, like the Seahawks have now, when he got to another team or other situations, he got exposed. Now, I think eventually some of that's going to happen to Richard Sherman because they're not going to be able to keep that secondary together. And we won't even talk about the other corners on that team who are very good, and they allow Sherman to be able to do some of the trapping, some of the scheming that he does. He wouldn't be able to do that if he is the corner. So I think eventually he's going to get exposed. That being said, the one thing about the NFL, and this free agency era, unless you're the Patriots, and even then the Patriots have won the Super Bowl and going on about to be 10 years. When it's your time, you got to capitalize now because there's no such thing as a future because it's been shown that teams don't repeat. They don't go back. And quite honestly, just like I mentioned Atlanta, you look at them, what happened with them? Last year, they were a play away from the Super Bowl, 5 yards away, and they were 4-12 the next year. It happens too often in this league. Every year, 5 new teams make the playoffs. There's no such thing as the future because you don't know what's going to happen in free agency. If the Seahawks are going to get it, they better get it now because you're not guaranteed to get back.
So you don't think Sherman is...
I agree with that.
Go ahead. You're asking a question, though?
You don't think Sherman would stay another year?
I mean, it's not whether he would stay or not. It's how much it's going to cost to keep him. And then when you start, I mean, because like I said, you're paying him $500,000 right now, which for all of us, I mean, that's life-changing money. For an NFL guy, that's not anything. Richard Sherman wants to have $10, $9 million a year money. Okay, if you give that to him, then who else you gonna get? Who else you gonna pay? You know, salary cap, free agency league. Somebody's not gonna get paid. It's a question of who it's gonna be. I'm sure Richard Sherman will come back, but again, who else are you gonna lose in order to keep him? And there ain't no way around that.
I don't see.
Well, because he's obviously getting endorsements, he's getting commercial endorsements, which pads his pocket very well. Maybe that $500,000, which I'm sure he'll get more next year, will not be, that factor. I see him coming back because he's created a brand. He's created a brand there with the fans as well. I mean, he's kind of like the face of the team right now.
But you also got to remember, egos are involved. Not only egos, there's also the Players Organization. The Players Association will not let him take less than what he's worth. If he's worth $12 million a year, then they're going to want him to sign a $12 million a year deal, because what happens is if he takes less money, then it's going to make it harder for the next guy. So, yeah, he's going to take every single penny that he can get. And whether it's right or wrong or however it is, that's just the way it goes. That's the way this league is set up. That's the way it's always been set up. And until things change with the free agency, that's the way it always will be.
Yeah, I don't see Seattle letting him go. I mean, for a number of reasons. He's the face of that defense, and just the sponsorship and exposure he has brought thus far this year, and there's more to come and going into next year. Seattle will be crazy if they let him go. Because there are teams so they're going to pay him. Point being, they're going to pay him. They're going to pay him what he wants to make him happy.
Who else are you going to pay with that? Okay, well, this will be the time we would open it up. This will be the time we would open it up for callers, and we're going to have a Twitter hashtag so people can tweet us as well. My Twitter account is Kayode Oluboroti. That's KAYODEOLUMOROTI. If you all have Twitter, we can put those up as well. But you bring up a good point about, the new free agency type of player, and the franchise player is really becoming obsolete in all of sports. And even if there is still a franchise player, it's only one, and they're the superstar. So I actually would like to see franchise players stay with teams and build their legacy by helping the whole team get better. What do you all think about that as we wrap this up?
Well, franchise players, first and foremost, they have to want to be a part of it. Say, for instance, Jimmy Graham from New Orleans. He's angry right now because they want to put a franchise tag on him. He doesn't want that. And he's not the first one to make that comment, in regards to not wanting to be a franchise player. And as Dr. Frost mentioned earlier, I mean, with the free agency and all these various different rule changes, has really messed up, to me, the standards of football. I mean, it's no, longevity, with players anymore. And, that kind of, to me, undermines, the future of teams. As we talked about Sherman and the possibility is he staying or is he going. But, franchise player to me is just a name. It doesn't mean that they're going to get franchise money. They're just going to be tagged.
So I didn't mean to cut you off. I mean, but here's the thing, even with that, even with all that being said, I mean, the NFL is the shortest career by far. I mean, the NFL stands for not for long. Always remember that. That's everybody knows that. You're right. I mean, that's just what that is. You know what I'm saying? The average NFL career is 1.5 years, and all the other sports is 3.5 to 4 years. So when you factor that alone, a cat's got to get his money, and the cat's got to get paid, and he's got to get paid when he can get paid. And very few people are going to be the Mike Vicks of the world who signed 2 $100 million contracts. That just doesn't happen because it's not set up for it to happen that often. When a guy like Sherman, who I think was a 4th-round pick, if I'm correct, he didn't get a big signing bonus, and they eliminated all those big rookie signing bonuses. But that money still goes to other guys. The point I'm making is that eventually guys are going to get paid, and as guys get paid with the salary cap, you can take a little less. Yeah, you can. But there's so many political factors that won't necessarily allow you to. Plus, I mean, yeah, okay, winning games is great, winning championships is great, but I like steak and shrimp. And I want to be able to eat steak and shrimp for as long as possible. And an extra $1 million or two can get me a lot more steak and shrimp. I can probably pay off my house instead of mortgaging my house. I mean, because, again, you don't know, and NFL contracts aren't guaranteed. So whatever signing bonus you can get, whatever money you can get in your hand today, you got to get it.
Absolutely.
That's totally agreed. That's totally agreed because just the one injury, for instance, Bowman's injury in the NFC Championship game where, you know, his knee, he had an obvious ACL, MCL, you know, destruction when the guy fell on his leg on the goal line. That could be career-ending for him. Same thing with Gronkowski, you know, the hit that he took from Ward. That could be career-ending. And you're absolutely right. These guys, you know, they're sports entertainers, and they do have to get paid. But, you know, of course, the challenge is that people still get stuck in a rigid ideology about, you know, being a fan and not understanding the nature of the business. And then, you know, obviously we have our local team here that has been floundering for years because of this whole idea of not being able to keep good players or get good players on the roster. So I agree totally with everything that's being said. And is there a fix for it? I mean, they can keep watering down the game till it's like flag football, but then nobody's going to want to watch it because it is a blood sport. It's a blood sport, and we all love it. And we want to see the hard hits. We want to see people, even though we don't want to see someone get carried off on a stretcher. If you're on the opposing team and somebody gets hit and knocked out of the game and they're the best player on the team, you know, there's a sigh of relief. So I think that these guys should be getting paid more money, period. I mean, if someone like, and I love this brother, Floyd Money Mayweather, you know, last year was the highest paid athlete in the world. And he fights, what, twice a year?
Well, Floyd gets his money for totally different reasons than other athletes get their money. Quite honestly, Floyd is a boxer, and I don't know how he got on boxing, but I guess we're here. Floyd as an actual boxer is very boring in the ring. He fights very conservatively, a lot of cutting, a lot of holding, a lot of grabbing, a lot of moving around. But Floyd as an entertainer, as a man, as a cash cow, is how he makes his money. The problem is in the NFL, cats really aren't necessarily allowed to do that unless they're quarterbacks, which is, I guess, now getting back to Richard Sherman, which is what made what he did, the way he handled an interview with Aaron Andrews, that whole situation. What made it so special is that we're talking about a non-quarterback, and I guess since we're being real here, and it's the black man's point of view with the show, a brother with dreads. You know what I'm saying? Actually being the central figure that we're talking about. I mean, this week you can't turn on TV and not talk about Richard Sherman. No, and you know, normally it's about the quarterbacks. And even then, with it being about the quarterbacks, if you notice, we're talking about Peyton Manning. We're not talking about the brother Russell Wilson, who I think is a pretty good young quarterback. Now, if we were a second-year white boy with the same level of skills, we'd be like, oh, he's great, blah, blah, blah. But we're not even talking about Russell Wilson. So in order to break the mold from the NFL machine, which, you know, the guys wear helmets so you can't see their faces, so you don't know who they are unless they're in commercials. And most of the time they're only in commercials if they're white and they're a quarterback. You don't see many wide receivers in commercials. You don't see running backs in commercials. You don't see offensive and defensive linemen in commercials. You see the quarterbacks, and historically, they've been right. Let's just call it what it is. So now you see a Richard Sherman, and you're like, oh, okay, all right. And now he's trying to get his name out there. Did he have to do something extraneous to get his name out there? Yeah, he did. But that's the same thing Floyd Mayweather has done, same thing other guys do. Because sadly, in order for brothers to get that type of commercial sign, we've always had to do more than just be good at what we do.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely do. I definitely agree with that.
And whether it creates infamy or whether you're looked at as being famous, because, you know, a lot of the white folks were offended by Richard Sherman's, his adrenaline and testosterone-laced tirade, which I thought was the truth of a blood sport expression. And this is something that a lot of people don't get. When you're out there and you're playing war, but it feels like real war, there's hormones that are being activated in the body that transcend the intellect. And this is what people don't get. Adrenaline and androgen hormones move faster than intellectual thinking. That it's not you're not conscious because you're in fight or flight mode. And the fact that he expressed himself well and articulately. He just raised his voice. He didn't use any four-letter words, you know, and everybody, oh, he's a thug. And he's a thug because they looked at how he looked. They were looking at his physical appearance, which, you know, is ridiculous. And everybody, of course, has recanted all of that, and, you know, because the brother's so well-spoken, because he's brilliant. But still, we're looked at it that way. I used to have dreads down to my butt. I would get pulled over in my car, getting profiled because I had locks. So it is interesting. It is interesting to see that. But brothers do have to step up and make their brand and do whatever they need to do as a sports entertainer if they want to actually really, make their way outside of the game. Because 1.5 years, life expectancy in the game, that's crazy. $1 million is nothing.
And for me,
for 1 year of
he
playing.
showed passion for the game. He showed passion for the game. I mean, he made the key play. And he shut down the favorite team, to win that particular game. Being a former athlete, I mean, and Dr. Ross, you are right. You're in a different mindset. You're in a different mode, and the passion for the game on top of wanting to win. And also, it's like you're out there branding yourself, doing the necessary plays or playing the necessary defense or that certain position, so that you stick out, so that you may get noticed. I mean, because you got to understand, that interview has brought him a whole another avenue of sponsorships and opportunities that he didn't have. So, people are going to view it how they are, because that's just unfortunate. That's America. But you know what? Hats off to the brother. Because,
yes, agreed.
He's not only a hell of a play, he's well-spoken, and he is, no doubt, one of the best cornerbacks in the game, period.
Well, I mean, and again, like I said, I mean, and I may sound a bit too duplicitous here, and I'm not trying to, talk too bad about him. Like I said, I think he's really good. I think he's legit. I just want to see if what he does without an Earl Thomas, what he does without a Byron Maxwell, who was the other corner. And it's a shame we got the other corner because, I mean, he's pretty good. I mean, I don't think we give that whole secondary enough credit as to how good they are as a whole, how good they are as a unit. And we're so focused on Sherman to where we aren't fair to the other gentlemen.
I mean, I watch all the sports pundits, and I beg to differ. I think that they give that whole secondary, its props. They say that they're the best secondary in the NFL.
Well, see, the thing is, we don't give their names. That's what I mean by
yeah.
That's what I mean by not really giving them their props. Yeah, because it takes a team. Because you have to have other good teammates on defense so that you can, play to your true ability. For instance, Youngstown State. It wasn't that we had great linebackers. It was the scheme of defense that we played to allow our linebackers to be great. I mean, when you're playing 3-4 yards off the ball and you don't have to worry about nobody coming off to hit you, you better be great. And you better have over 100 tackles a season. But again, it took teamwork. And you are right. I mean, that Seahawks defense is stout. And again, he's able to do
and play his true ability, due to his teammates. So I definitely agree with you there.
Well, I also want to make sure that everybody remembers that when the young lady interviewed Mr. Sherman, it was pretty much right after he made the game-winning play. And so you can't be more excited than, a few minutes right after you make the biggest stop of the game, because it's right at the end where the other team could have won. So emotions were at an all-time high, and you cannot pull your words back once you say them, and I don't think Sherman should or even is able to pull the words back once you say them. But
and we keep forgetting that the way he expressed himself was really based on the response that Crabtree had towards him when he mugged him in his head. Right. When he gave him a little pat and said, "Hey, man, good game," and Crabtree just mugged him and pushed him away. I think that's really what pissed him off, and he went off because of that.
Right. Absolutely. Great point. That's a great point.
Well, I mean, but even the whole thing with Crabtree, I mean, that whole thing got really overblown. And like I said, I mean, Crabtree's reaction was what it was. But, I mean, at the time, it's like, okay, hey, you just lost the game. Here comes this guy, smacking you on the head. You know what I'm saying? Like, how friendly are you supposed to be coming from his perspective? Like, what are you supposed to feel right then? So I just think a lot of it is both guys, Crabtree and Sherman, kind of need to grow up a little bit as far as in how they deal with each other. Because supposedly this whole thing goes back to a charity event where Crabtree said some things, and this has been carried over for a while. So it's kind of like at some point, it's like, hey, grow up, fellas, play a game. Or if you're going to play that trash talk game, then play it all the way out, and you can't get mad at it, whatever the results of it are. Right. Great.
So this was definitely a great session, and all you listeners can add in your 2 cents or your $500,000 worth on hashtag WhatsTheBMP. That's WhatsTheBMP on Twitter, and we can respond to you on the next go-round after the Super Bowl. So are there any final thoughts from all three of you? Mr. Ringfield, any thoughts from you?
Denver. It's going to be a great Super Bowl, and it's one of the Super Bowls that I've been looking forward to. I think both teams are well matched, but again, I think it comes down to Peyton Manning being that field general, and if the Seahawks have a chance, Russell Wilson's got to not only beat them in the air, he's got to beat them on the ground.
All right, Mr. Wilborn, any final thoughts from you?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's very interesting how, as much as football has changed, a lot of things stay the same. The teams that are in the Super Bowl now are teams that can run the ball effectively for yards. Who would have thought that running the ball still matters in 2014? They protect the passer, and they rush the passer. They're able to make solid plays in the secondary. They don't turn the ball over, and yet each team's defense gets turnovers. This should be a beautiful played football game, and it goes to show that, the game may not be as brutal as it is, but there's certain core elements that matter. You have to win on the offensive and defensive line. You have to protect your quarterback, rush the other team's quarterback, and be able to make plays. And most of the teams do that. That's why they're here.
All right, and Dr. Foss, any thoughts from you?
My thoughts, and that we haven't really talked about it, and it's been kind of controversial, but the whole thing about the first cold outdoor game in decades, it could be a sneaky factor. We could get it could get some kind of Alberta Clipper blow in. The weather guessers kind of always give us an idea of what's happening, but you're dealing with an older quarterback, and if it gets a little rainy out there, and the guys in Seattle, they play in the rain all the time, it could change the complexion of this game dramatically. And we've all seen Peyton Manning not do well in certain types of situations based on weather, because he was a dome player for the majority of his career. So it's going to be interesting. I'm going to love it. I can't wait and it's going to be a historical event, and I would like to see Peyton Manning, make establish his legacy, but at the same time, I always feel okay with that underdog pulling it out at the end, just like Baltimore did, with what Baltimore did. I mean, the same thing. I mean, I really like to see the underdog pull it out, just to kind of stick it in and turn it a little bit. So.
All right, you want to see the underdog win, but you think they're probably going to lose.
Yeah. If it's nice weather, it's going to be tough for Seattle.
Well, we see what 2 inches of snow can do in a place like Atlanta, where people aren't.
Hey. Let me say this real quick. I'll let y'all go.
My heart goes out to everybody down there. I used to live there, and we're going to end on that note. The Super Bowl is going to be great, and again, hashtag WhatsTheBMP. Everybody have a great time watching the Super Bowl, and thank you all on the panel.
All right, enjoy.
All right, boys.